I guess that leads me to my next question. Are Israelis hopeful that all of the hostages will be released?
I think there's always hope. I think there are questions about the prices to pay. Right now, I think Israelis are very much willing to pay the price in a war. And so, if there are daring rescues like we have seen Israel do over history, and Tebi, and in all sorts of other situations, I think that Israelis would support that. There is talk about Hamas wanting a prisoner swap where terrorists who are sitting in prison in Israel would be swapped for civilians who have been taken hostage by Hamas. We shouldn't. It's not really a prisoner swap because that suggests some kind of equivalency here. But in any case, there's rumors that Hamas has asked for an all-for-all deal. In Israel, the government has said that it's not true. That even though Hamas is saying this on their social media channels. And there was also a hostage video that was released this week in which one of the Israeli hostages spoke about such a deal, but that when Israel is going through diplomatic channels with other countries, that deal is not actually on the table.
I want to go back to something that you said earlier because it's really just in my mind and I can't get it out. And you said that Americans don't think or some Americans, the media, some diplomats aren't saying that the hostages are top of mind. So where do you think that the media deficits are here?
Well, I think that maybe the war story is more exciting, sexy, bigger headlines. And the hostages, they wrote about the hostages, and maybe there's not something new about the hostages, so it's not that exciting and interesting. Sometimes that's how it happens with news. But, part of being a journalist, you and I know, is being creative and looking for the stories. And the hostage story is an important one. And whether you're just telling, you could just tell the story of who these people were and what kinds of lives they led. And you don't have to have something new about hostage exchanges or releases in order to talk about them.
And I guess my next question would be, where do you think the media deficits are in general when it comes to this war?
I think that there's a lot of sort of equivalency being drawn when people look at the numbers, right? And they'll say how many Israelis were killed, how many were injured, et cetera. And then you look in Gaza. And the difference is that Hamas went into residential villages, okay, the villages that are not quote unquote settlements. This would have been wrong no matter where they did it in Israel. But people should know that these are not settlements, that if you think that those towns are not legitimate, then you think the state of Israel shouldn't exist because most of them have been around, the whole time. They have nothing to do with the quote unquote settlements. In any case, they went into these civilian residential villages, burned down houses with people alive inside them, gunned people, mutilated people, tortured them before killing them, often in front of their children. I mean, I don't want to get into the details because they're horrible and graphic, but Secretary of State Blinken did testifying before Congress today on the day we recorded, and you can look up that video. Even he spoke about some of the most terrible cases that took place. Israel, on the other hand, is trying to hunt down a terrorist organization that is hiding behind civilians. So they intentionally go out and murder civilians, and then they use the civilians who live in Gaza to hide behind. The Hamas headquarters are under a hospital in Gaza. It's called the Shifa Hospital. Shifa means like healing in Arabic. And instead of healing, they're using it to, literally to cover, because it's right on top of their headquarters, right? So Israel has not attacked that hospital and that headquarters, but Israel is trying to avoid civilian casualties. Out of the million, believe it's 1.1 million people who live in northern Gaza, 800,000 have already evacuated. And that's the difference. In Israel, you have many, many tens of thousands of people who evacuated from Israel's south and also by Israel's northern border where the Iranian proxy Hezbollah has been shelling. And they are evacuated after the attacks. In Israel has been trying to get Gazans to evacuate before the attacks because they don't want to strike civilians.